continue, whether it's indoor dining or movie theaters, how much of a rise do you expect in either cases or the statewide rate of transmission because this is happening, and how much of a rise is acceptable to you? And lastly, for Colonel Callahan, I'd like to ask you, you just mentioned that Officer Peak may have expired because of a cardiac issue that was connected to that rescue. Can you tell us exactly how that happened or why that happened? And can you comment as a member of law enforcement that what it means to you that Officer Peak was actually diving in to save a burglary suspect, a perpetrator who was wanted for a crime, as opposed to somebody who just happened to fall into the water? Thank you.
Bear with me one sec. Judy, do we say which veterans home, or we?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you.
We'll get back to you. Listen, any budget has an enormous amount of negotiation associated with it, but there are certain pieces of it that have to be sacrosanct. You know, we have to make our bond payments. We have to pay interest. We have to pay principal, and I put pension payments in that same. It's not literally legally the same category, but in so many respects, I view it as a similar obligation. But listen, this is a process that goes back and forth. I've said this before. This is not a little bit, it's a much shorter runway than normal. But I've now been around this position long enough to be able to compare notes with how we do our budget versus other states. I think we do it really well. I'm going to meet with leadership later on today and just compare notes. We'll meet again, I think, later in the week in a couple of days. So to be determined, but a lot of things are negotiable, some things just are not. Judy or Tina, I mean, you're more qualified to answer this, I think, in terms of how much risk we're willing to take. We know that when we've taken steps that we take on more risk, whether that was parks and golf early on, or beaches, or outdoor dining, or now indoor activities. And we also have said many times this virus ebbs and flows. It undulates is a word that we've used, and I think you heard Judy and I back and forth earlier that the RT is somewhat informed by the amount of positive tests, and you look back, you know, today we're 284. The past few days have been under 400, but 5-6 days ago, Judy, we were well over 450 in a couple of days in a row. I'm not sure how you would how would you assess the willingness in terms of the risk profile? Tina.
Well, you know, it's going to be hard to tell until we monitor trends for the next couple of weeks, because, you know, we just implemented the indoor dining and the entertainment allowances. So we need to wait like about 2 weeks or so. But that said, you know, we do recognize that things are going to be done differently now. We know the types of precautions that we need to take. There are a lot of safeguards when we actually resumed indoor dining and some of these entertainment factors, but also would like to just take the opportunity to stress the importance of recognizing that we're now also entering flu season, and this is a reminder and the time to start thinking about getting the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine will help prevent respiratory illness due to the flu virus, which will help us with looking at other respiratory virus activity that's going to be going on in this fall. This is the time, September or October is the optimal time to get that.
Tina, I'm getting my flu shot Saturday morning. So I don't want to come back in here on Monday and have you ask me if I've got my flu shot yet. The tragedy in Bridgeton, Pat, any more color on that?
Yeah, I think it would be premature. I would defer to the medical experts with regard to cause of death. But regardless of what he was doing in that river, whether it was chasing a suspect, whether somebody had fallen in, to law enforcement, there really is no difference that you raised your right hand and took an oath to protect people's lives, and that's what he was doing, and in doing so, made the ultimate sacrifice.
God bless him, and God rest his soul. Sir, you got anything? No? We'll get over to Dustin. Dustin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your reaction to the legislature predicting that the state will have, or OLS I should say, the state will have $1.4 billion more than the Treasury Department predicted? Do you think that's within the realm of possibility? Could that have an impact on the dollar amount of your bonding plan, or would you refuse to certify those revenues? On schools, have there been any reported coronavirus cases and/or quarantines at schools? And will the administration be tracking outbreaks in school districts? And if so, whether that will be made public? And what, if anything, is the administration doing to prepare for a possible vaccine as soon as November, as the Trump administration has said could happen? And do you share any misgivings of some public health officials that he's rushing out a vaccine before November 3rd to help his reelection? Thanks.
Thank you. Listen, our Treasury team is, I think, looking at the OLS numbers, I think, as we speak. I mentioned I've got a meeting later on today with leadership. I hope they're right. I will just say this, that this is a time, we pride ourselves in being prudent, reasonable in our projections. I'd probably on the margin rather be in an environment like the one we're in, which is unlike any. This is, as we always say, we have to remind everybody that this is a fiscal reality matched only by the Great Depression and the Civil War. So when you're in that sort of league, it is, I just think we need to be very prudent, but the short answer is we're looking at their numbers. I'm not aware of any outbreaks or quarantining unless you all are at schools as we sit here. Are you, either of you? I hope it stays that way, but we should all expect that there will be, without question. I'm not sure I'd use the word misgiving, but I was back and forth with senior executives who were preparing to. I suspect by now they've already put a letter out. Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna were going to jointly put a statement out that they would err on the side of safety and the normal protocols associated with developing a vaccine. And I went to two CEOs and one executive vice president saying, listen, that was really, I took my hat off to them, that the fact that they said that, we always knew that these folks do it the right way. But I thought it was important that they did say that. We just can't let politics play in here. I've got no evidence that it is, by the way. Early November is, based on the conversations we've had, I would be lying if I said that was not on the very aggressive side, based on the time frames for either therapeutics or vaccines that we've had with the medical folks we talked to. I had sort of, I think we had been led to believe sort of year end would be at least a wave to address vulnerable communities, frontline healthcare and other essential workers. If it beats it, I suspect we'll be among the happiest people. And as we prepare for it, I don't want to get, unless Judy or Tina want to add anything to this, I've got no insight specifically on preparation other than to say equity will matter. And I think we said this last week, there's a hierarchy of sort of communities and populations that we have applied to our testing protocols. I would bet those would be similar hierarchies that we would for a vaccine as well. So again, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and I think that's going to guide us on that front as well. Thank you. Nikita.
Hi, Governor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Given that the all VBM races have tended to bump turnout in local elections, have you given any consideration to asking the legislature to make municipal elections permanently held through all mail-in ballots? Separately, some counties have new voting machines on order. If New Jersey continues to rely like it has on mail-in ballots, it seems like they maybe won't need as many of those machines. Do you recommend those counties slow such purchases or even cancel them? And you've talked a lot about Senator McConnell in recent weeks, and I know that you've previously been a generous donor to Democratic campaigns. Do you have any plans to contribute to Amy McGrath's campaign against Senator McConnell? That's it.
Is that it? I've got no comment on giving to campaigns, including Amy McGrath, other than I think she's a great candidate. She's a rock star. I've had no conversations, Matt, unless you have with folks regarding vote by mail for municipal elections. So there's nothing to add there. And I would say this, I don't have the specifics on the machines that are on order by county. Those are not cheap. So, you know, obviously financial considerations are also a part of this. We're not in a forever and always moment here, please God, right? So Dustin just asked about vaccines. I'll be thrilled if they're here by early November, but I won't be shocked if they're here or therapeutics by a year from November. And so I say that because this is a window of time. I hope it's a short window that we're having to do things that we've never done before. But ultimately, would I have some high degree of confidence that we'll get back to using machines to vote? Absolutely. I personally have voted by mail over the years. I think it's a easy, straightforward way to cast your vote that adds to democracy. But that doesn't mean that we're past the days of machine voting. So without knowing the specifics of how many, how much, what the timing is, we're in a window here that I hope is shorter than longer. Anything you want to add to that, or you? Okay. So with that, thank you all. I'm going to mask up here. I want to thank Judy and Tina, as always. Pat, thank you. Jared. Matt, happy birthday. You've got some Dunkin' Munchkins back there. I will not join you, but I know you'd love everyone to go back and grab a Munchkin on the way out. Judy, that includes you and Tina and Pat. Matt Placken, thank you. Mahan, again, we'll be virtually with you tomorrow and Thursday, in person at 2 o'clock on Friday, unless you hear otherwise. It's back to school. This is a big week. I mean, we said that we had a couple of back-to-back big weeks. Last week, gyms, indoor dining, movie theater. This week, some back to school. Last week, this week, big back to school. And we're going to monitor this. This is not something that we're going to be able to come back to you tomorrow and tell you how, as a health matter, how things went today, necessarily. We need to monitor this stuff over time, as Tina said earlier. But folks, keep doing the right thing. You've been extraordinary. No state has done a better job, and that's thanks to the millions of you out there. So thank you all, and God bless you.